Can you hear me?
We can.
Yep.
Howard's not there yet. I tried asking a little bit ago and didn't get a response.
Sorry, no, Howard's not here yet.
No Michael today.
Michael will not be able to make it.
Okay. All right, well, we do have public comment on here. Would anybody like to address the group?
Yes,
Go for it.
can I sit or do I need?
No, it's fine. Just make
Okay.
sure you introduce yourself and where you're from.
Okay, Michael Perry, City of Stevenson, homeowner. So my background, for those of you who don't know me, moved here 4.5 years ago, chasing grandkids. Retired from Orange County Fire for 30 years, was a fire captain there. And prior to that was at Vandenberg Air Force Base as a firefighter for 3 years. I was a professional firefighter for 33 years. Working for Orange County, we were a contracts agency. We protected 23 cities, plus unincorporated in Orange County. All were city contracts. When I looked at the fire governance, I agree 100%. It's not fair to the current fire chief. It's not going to be fair to whoever the next fire chief is or future fire chiefs. To first have a governance board where they're reporting to a city council plus a fire district board. It's really convoluted and it just doesn't make sense. When I read in the minutes that the recommendation is for the city to join the district, while that sounds good, the problem is first off, look at the increase in property taxes for every city resident. And that's not only the homeowners, but that's going to affect people that are on low income, renters and everything else, because that's going to bring up their costs. And there's no increased service benefit. So it's not like the fire department saying, hey, we're going to tax you more, but we're going to provide additional staffing and additional engine, et cetera. There's no operational benefit at all. However, while I agree that the governance is very antiquated and doesn't make sense, what to me makes sense in my experience is what the city should do is contract, just like they do with the sheriff's department, just like they do with other agencies, contract with Fire District 2 to provide the fire protection for the city for X amount of dollars, whatever's negotiated to maintain the operation. That still leaves skin in the cities. It leaves skin for the city as far as having a say. However, with the fire chief, that gives one boss or one board that he or she's going to report to. It makes more sense. You can still have joint meetings. The fire chief should be at every council meeting to give a report on, hey, this is what the firefighters and staff of Fire District 2 is providing, your city. So I see the streamline as far as the governance, but right now it makes no sense when I'm looking at this, to essentially charge each citizen or each property, $300+ But again, there's no operational benefit to the citizens. There's no additional fire engines, there's no additional staffing. It doesn't make sense. So I highly recommend, as you pursue the future of the organization and the future of the fire service, is to consider contracting with Fire District 2 versus joining Fire District 2. So like I said, that's how we did it in Orange County and Los Angeles County and so many different, throughout the United States. I think it's easier to do a contract. I wouldn't recommend doing a 1 year or 2 year contract. I'd recommend like a 5-year contract with cost of living, or not cost of living, but increases, to deal with inflation, et cetera. The second point I'd like to just make real quick is, I know it's a big nut to crack, but as far as future fire station and the maintenance of the current fire station downtown. $100,000, that from what I understand, the chief, has been getting some informal quotes on, and that's a lot of money. I'm sure he had some chest pains just when he got that number. The issue I have with that is if this is a building that's ultimately gonna be replaced, do you wanna spend $100,000 plus on painting it or doing facility upgrades? The second point is as some of the Fire District 2 board members have pointed out in previous meetings, that building is owned solely by Fire District 2. So I'm not so sure that the city should, out of their funds, be paying for paint and capital improvements on a facility that's not even owned by them at all. If those improvements need to be done, it probably should be done maybe by Fire District 2 and their money, or or not do them if there's going to be a future fire station in the next couple of years. Why spend Fire District 2 district money, and why spend city money? So I would look at that very carefully also. And then the last thing, looking at the fire chief's description, and I don't know if the current fire chief has this, but I think and again, just as in my experience, I'm looking at some of the qualifications and things, and it's pretty ambiguous. I don't know if 5 years experience is going to qualify somebody to be a fire chief. That's a lot of, it doesn't matter, volunteer, paid, whatever. That's a lot of responsibility. Some of the qualifications in here, for instance, red card. Well, a red card is just a wildland qualification card, but that can be everything from the kid who just gets hired as an 18-year-old as a seasonal firefighter for the Forest Service, and it's his first day, all the way up to a type 1 incident commander. So for the future description, for his job description, you may need to get a little more into the weeds on the future fire chief and what qualifications he or she should have. Because ultimately, if that person's making decisions and if something goes sideways, OSHA and all the investigations, everybody's going to be looking at that chief's qualifications. So you may want to just look at that a little harder, form a committee to really work on the chief's qualifications. I know Rob's retiring here soon, and these are the times to do that. But anyways, I'm willing to, if you have a committee or to be a citizen input, like I said, I've been a professional firefighter for 33 years with a contract agency. I have a pretty intimate knowledge of how it works. So I appreciate your time, all of you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sam? Make sure you introduce yourself and where you're from.
Sam Kenningstead, Stevenson. Stand up, try to upstage mic, neighbor. All right, my points, one is there was talk about increased costs and taxes. Not too many council meetings ago, there was all concern about, regular people can't afford to live in Stevenson. I think raising taxes in any way should be a last resort for a city, and I just wonder, the city committee made reference to the top, council identified 5 top priorities. Is this one of them? If not, then raising taxes should be a last resort. It just concerns you, price people out of the neighborhood when we're concerned about pricing people out of the neighborhood. Also, well, and then tied into that is, this isn't the only place competing for new taxes. It sounds like I've heard a lot of, was talking about a sheriff's position for animal control or something, but I don't know why we pay for the, anyway. And then I just read in the paper, the cemetery wants to double their tax rate. So you're gonna stick it to the people who, potentially can afford it the least. then my other point was the fire hall. I had the same comment Mike did, that if it's owned by the fire district. In every situation I'm aware of, the landowner is responsible for maintenance of the building. So I don't know why that is something the city is dealing with and not pushing it off to fire district 2, who apparently is a landowner.
Can I interject real quick?
Well, hang on, let's let,
Well,
make sure that
We
Sam's
haven't
finished.
confirmed the ownership of the building, so that might calm some concerns.
Say that again?
We haven't confirmed the ownership of the building. It's up in the air. We're actually talking about it. We talked about it in our subcommittee meeting, so we need to check on it.
Okay, I was just reading it from the agenda
Yeah,
notes that
so
stated.
we're,
Right.
so we're the rest of us.
Right. That's why I wanted to interject, because it is a big sticking point even with me. So
But my big
sorry
concern
about
is
that.
any
I just
tax
wanted to
increase.
get that out there.
It's tough, tough community.
Was that it?
Thank you, sir.
Go ahead, make sure you introduce yourself and where you're from.
Ray Broughton County Rural Fire District 2. I'm also a volunteer firefighter. I'm for the annexation. I don't think most of you know, understand what the chief and some of the commissioners have done to go, most of us strike team call 14 hours for $10 with nowhere to shower, nowhere to change in private, and the cost of running a fire service has gone up exponentially over the last few years. We're looking at, trying to do less with more. I mean, more with less volunteers, getting a new engine, everything. It's gonna be really expensive getting into the future, we want to provide a really good fire service. And, and from everything we've heard and what we see, that lower building is what we have right now. It's the only option. It needs upgraded. It's tiny. We're packed with our apparatus in there. We're changing elbow to elbow. We need some more, we need a little more support. We might need more revenue in the future to, support the volunteers that do show up. Everybody knows across the country, volunteerism is down big. 80% of firefighters in America volunteer. I don't think $10 a call, I don't know many people so we're trying to find ways. I've seen the chief work relentlessly. I've seen our trainers and everything else, SCBAs, and go across the board, boots, gloves, what they cost is just getting way up there. It's gonna cost us a lot more than, saying pass it off to the county. I'm for the annexation. I mean, I think that the cost and the benefit is really gonna outweigh a little bit of the growing pains.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yeah. All right. So, Leon, it's listed here as council business. I'm assuming this is for the board in general. the
Business. Yeah.
Business, okay. Rob, looks like you're up.
The fire department update. I have that.
Howard says he's trying to join too, or maybe
He's
he did.
joined,
Okay.
yeah.
I'm on, Rob.
So,
Did you have that? There we go.
yeah, let me, here we go. So,
All right, so I threw a couple slides together. So far this year, through August, we've ran 60 calls. You can see the majority of those are commercial fire alarms in mutual aid. We have had increased task force deployments this year. Believe there was 5 together that we've went on. So that's a little bit different. So yeah, just I think you guys got this slide printed off too, so it gives you a little bit of details on the call. Let's go to the next slide. I guess, do you have any questions on that? What was that?
I guess we're ready to move on.
Yeah.
Okay. So currently we have 27 active members. We have 2 students on hiatus for college. We keep the college kids on the roster, and they try to come during their breaks. 6 new members in the last 3 months. 3 of those new members are high school students. So we're getting some younger people involved, which is encouraging. That brings the total high school students to 5. So we're seeing an uptick of interest in the high school, which is good. Let's go to the next slide. So some of the projects we just completed, the re-chassis of Brush 28. That was a fire district vehicle. The total project cost was $87,000. To give you a comparison of what a new Type 6 brush rig cost, Fire District 5 just purchased a new one a couple months ago. I had it built. It was over $300,000 brand new. So our planning and design of our brush rigs to be able to remount the firefighting end of the apparatus on the new chassis is turning out just like we planned. We replaced that chassis with a brand new Ford F550, which was we lucked out and got in on the brief ordering window that the state enterprise services opened up. We also started looking at the community wildfire protection plan. That's a county-wide initiative. We've met twice on that so far with the larger group. The Underwood Conservation District is driving that, and I believe there's going to be another meeting soon that reaches out to the broader public to get public input. So that's a pretty big plan. We have CWPPs in the county already, but they're old. They range from 2008 to 2010, and the federal government wants to see a single CWPP for the county instead of the individual. I think there's 5 or 6 individual plans broken up by geographic area. We started planning for the fire station repairs. Again, that was driven off of a strategic plan initiative task to make the building more appealing, to gain more confidence from the community and to draw in more volunteers. We are looking at a siding option, a metal siding option. We're also looking at a painting option, but I didn't put that in there. I forgot. There's some eave water damage above the man door where the PUD comes down through the roof. We discussed a bathroom remodel in our department head meetings about a month or so ago. So we asked the contractor to give us a cost on that, and then adding a workshop room that we can work on items, have our tools stored in and such. You can go ahead and go to the next slide. So this slide just kind of shows off the Brush 28. Again, it's a 2024 Ford F550 chassis. We replaced a 1999 Ford F550 chassis that we actually got from the PUD. So that truck gave the county 2 lives, 2 life cycles. Total project cost was $87,000 and some change, and the anticipated lifespan of this chassis is 20 years. So, like I said, we take the flatbed part and we remount it onto a new chassis, and we did a little bit of plumbing upgrades on this as well to match our other brush rig. So we did this with a DNR state grant, an $18,000 grant. So we are recouping some of that $87,000 back as a grant. So That's all I have. Does anybody have any questions? All right, silence is golden, so. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
All right, this brings us to the fire chief job description. Now, this was borrowed freely from somewhere else, or we
Yeah,
massaged.
Rob borrowed some from other job descriptions from local agencies. Also looked at, insurance and what they have for some job descriptions, as recommended items on there. So, yeah. And I believe it was sent out, the beginning of August, to the fire district commissioners as well as to the city council. And no comments were received.
And Leona, there was one question, actually two questions. One was adding EVIP to the
Certifications or?
certifications, which is I added it and I forgot to send you the new packet. And then we had a question about the flagging certification. Was that just a carryover from what the city requires for their people?
It could have been, I could have forgotten to delete it.
Yeah, that's what I thought. I mean, we train on traffic control and such, so that was the feedback that we had. And we discussed that last night at the fire district commissioner meeting, so. And to Mike's point, there is some vagueness built in there. You know, you could aggregate down what a red card is: firefighter 1, firefighter 2, task force leader, engine boss. Basically, the thought process there would be just to get the entry level firefighter 1 or 2. I can't remember what it is there. I think it's backwards in the wildland, but yeah, we could aggregate that down farther. But I mean, we got to try to attract somebody to take over, because you're not going to have anybody January 1st. So can't get too far in the weeds, but we can work at as a working living document, but you're gonna have to have somebody there January 1st.
I have a couple of questions for you, Rob, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Number one, I'm assuming that the basic framework of this job description was actually borrowed. You've had an opportunity to have input on it. How many
Yeah,
years-
I reached out to all the fire districts in Skamania County. I reached out to Klickitat County Fire District 3, which has a paid chief, and I kind of mashed them all together. That kind of best described what I do, and then tried to set the groundwork for moving forward on eventually changing this job description into, if we had to go to hiring a chief, we could do a little bit of massaging on it and fine tune it down to where you would actually need, you know, the details that Mike was referencing would help us more if we're going for a full-time chief. You're
Okay,
talking
has this been
a considerable
vetted?
amount of money for that.
Has this been vetted by any other agencies, or just basically you and Leanna have been put it together? Or?
Yeah, the task was to get a job description to Leona, and that's what we did. And that's so it's coming down to you guys to review.
Hey, Rob, the EVIP is actually under the 18 months requirement. I spelled it all out instead of
Okay.
using the acronym.
So we were probably thinking the same thing and just missed it. So I just missed it.
Okay.
Either that or I maybe brought it up to you and we corrected it. I can't remember.
Liana spelled it out. We weren't
I
looking
spelled
for,
it out.
we weren't looking for big words.
Acronym in there.
We like our
And the last
acronyms,
question I
so
have, if you don't mind, Rob, are you going to be able to weigh in, just for the record, on your opinion of what you'd like to see happen with this annexation?
the annexation gets us to a point to where I think uh, the agency can grow. You know, we have to make decisions in the 15 to 30-year time period. Same way with the building. You know, and I preference this with, I'm a city taxpayer, so I'm gonna take a hit if the voters vote for it. I do have a little bit of a issue with, we're not gonna gain anything. We haven't put a plan together to present to the people to show them what the tax dollars are gonna be used for. So, I mean, it's very, very preliminary. However, I do like the idea of doing a contracting and having Fire District 2 take over fire services for the city of Stevenson, and you know, working out all of the transferring of assets and the reserve fund and all of that. I don't know how that would look on a contract. It could be a step towards annexation. I think the timeline is maybe a little bit aggressive that we wrote down, but it's also kind of just hit some dates to put out there. The county fire district needs to do some things before they talk about annexation. So one of them is they need to do a lid lift. They haven't done a lid lift in probably 40 or 50 years since the beginning. So their levy rate is at 56 or 57 cents per 1,000. I think it should be up at $1. So the lid lift is a tool to reset that levy rate. Annexation gets the district financially set up to build a new building. Right now, the city and the fire district aren't in a position. The city's a little bit better because we do have that reserve fund. But you take that, I think that reserve fund is 1.9 million. You know, about 500 to 800,000 of that is savings that we've been saving since 2001 for a replacement fire engine. So, and we've also been saving for some SCBA's. That's on a 10-year recycle, a 10-year cycle to replace. So,
Rob, when you say savings, how does that work?
Okay,
Do we want to get back to the job?
Yeah,
description first?
Yeah, let's do that.
yeah,
Get back to-
okay, I mean, I was asked a question, so I'm sorry for.
no,
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 yeah,
and
yeah.
I appreciate that too, because you were asked a question. I just was afraid we'd lose our train of thought on the, because you're getting into very good stuff on that other subject that I think we need to get into. I just didn't want to lose our track on this. So you were done with your questions, Chuck?
Yeah.
Dave, do you got some, or do you want me to ask?
No, I think he wants to get back to the job.
That's what I meant on.
Yeah, I don't have anything on job description.
The only question I had on the job description was that Mr. Perry mentioned 2 points that caught my interest, and I'm curious what other people think about it, including you, Rob. On the 5 years of experience, I'd be curious as to Rob and other people's thoughts on that. Should that be higher? And I see what Mr. Perry was saying is almost when you have less calls, you almost need more experience there, because you're not going to get that job on the job experience as much maybe. But so I'm curious about that. And also on the job description, I appreciate what you said, Rob, that it's a living document, meaning we can change it and finesse it as we go. And that's true. Another item that Mr. Perry mentioned was the liability. If there's an issue or in the Sue Happy Society, people are going to go back to that job description and look at it. So that makes me think, well, we probably want to be as careful as we can with it. That just caught my attention. But anyway, I'll shut up or I'll be quiet so you can tell me, other people comment on those two things, the experience and then liability issues with the job description if we miss something.
In the examples that I pulled, the experience was anywhere from 2 years to 10 years. So I just split it.
Yeah.
Um,
Do you think it should be
no,
more,
in
or
a
are you
perfect
happy with
world,
five?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you. I talked over
Oh,
you.
I'm just curious, what, are you happy with five or do you think it should be more? What would you do what do you recommend?
Well, I'll tell you, we've only had one person step up to be interested in taking on the chief.
Okay.
So
Oh,
I think adding more experience isn't gonna really get us a chief.
okay, I understand.
Again, if we were going to do a hire situation, I would say that we would need somebody with more time, but more time equals more money. So, for example, Mosier, the city of Mosier has a full-time chief. I think they pay their chief $59,000 a year. And that's comparable to what we run for call volume. I think our department's a little bit bigger. So, but you take a paid chief position, you're not going to get the golden egg for the type of money that the city and the county fire district has to spend.
Okay.
So we are definitely talking volunteer, which in some instances, in my case, you're the only one that can do it because you know how to do the administrative work and nobody else wanted to do it. That was 2014. So, I agree with you guys. You guys are bringing up great questions. I don't know how to, if we're gonna make if we're not, we need to make a decision. Are we making a job description for a paid chief that we're gonna put, when we're looking for $160,000 to $200,000 a year, a city of Portland or a city of Vancouver or a city of Hood River chief? I don't know. I don't know how much, I guess the closest local one would be Clickitat 3, and they're going into a fire authority. So I'm not sure what the pay is there. But I did use, like I said, I used their job description as well. So I don't know. I mean, you're bringing up great questions. I just don't have a great answer.
Hey, Rob, this is Howard. Can I interject a bit? Is that okay?
Good.
Sure.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to what Pat said about, I think, it's a good point that you made, Rob, that when you got elected as chief, you're the only one standing that was willing to do it, right? And we are at a point where we need to think about how we crawl, walk, run, fly, right? We need to iterate quick and have something as a basis to start, and then think about the strategic plan of what do we do now? What do we do in 5 years? What do we do in 10 years? So part of that job description, if we make it so overtly complicated and the restrictions are too high, then we implode and that's a disservice to the people that we serve, right? We still have to serve the community. We don't really have a very good building, right? We've got our challenges, right? So we're trying to fix that one piece at a time and then iterate slowly so that we can come to something that it looks like a fire department, acts like a fire department, right? And can do that. So I think that we just have to think about that so we don't get into so much paralysis that we're trying to analyze the perfect job description to say this is the ultimate fire chief, because we're not going to get there.
Okay.
Any
It's
other
my
questions on
goal with the
this?
next chief to hand off the department so they can take it to the next level. I kind of feel like that was what I did in 2014. I took it and tried to improve it and get it in a state to where when I hand it off to the next group of, volunteers that are passionate about the department, that they would be sitting fairly good. So That's kind of my motivation.
Yeah, the only other statement I want to make is, I appreciate your 10 years of service as fire chief, and thank you for that. So that's the only other comment I wanted to make.
Scott, I'd just like to see if last night at our meeting, Rob and Howard, there was a piece of paper circulating that showed something from Gabe showing the fire hall here in the city owned 50% by the city and 50% by the county of District 2. Is that true, Rob?
You guys saw the document. I didn't get to see the document, so that was why I interjected. You know, and Leona can speak a little bit to this. There's some questions about, is that just what it's listed in the county audit or assessor's office, or is there a deed that states that it's co-owned? So I
Okay,
think we
hang
have to
on,
look
let's
into it.
put a button on the job
Yeah.
description, and then we can move on from there. So any other comments or questions for Rob on the job or in general?
No.
All right, and then any comment from fire district on the job description?
We all had time to look at it, the EBIT thing, and it was already discussed, so.
All right, so we're gonna call this accepted for now.
It's fine.
Okay, now then, I guess the fire hall maintenance is a perfect time to talk about ownership. So you're saying that there's a document from the assessor saying 50-50. Is property ownership different than building
So
ownership?
the deed that, when we did a title search, found that the city gave the title and the property to the fire district. So that was the last document that we found. If you have something else that shows that, that would be great, but I've seen the same thing on the assessor side that said it's owned 50-50 by both. But we've also seen where the documents that are at the title company don't line up to what's recorded at the assessor's office. So that it could be a paperwork issue, I don't know, but I also don't know what was given last night, so I don't know.
It was that piece of paper from.
It was just the assessor's printout that showed the 50-50, Liana. So same thing. We don't have any formal document that says that was the last title transaction that shows that. So it could very well be just something that somebody entered, right? Versus reality, which is what isn't in the title that you see.
And that title that showed, or the deed that transferred it could also just not have hit the assessor's office, I mean.
Correct.
So,
Yeah.
We can,
And the date of that deed is,
I can pull it up.
Oh,
It's
not that
like
it-
60s or 70s.
okay, so.
Really long time ago, Pat.
Yeah,
Okay.
predates us
Yeah,
in this capacity.
No title search has ever been done.
That's what I'm saying, we did a title search,
okay, so
And that's what it
all you got.
found.
That's what, okay,
yeah.
all right.
So the last title search shows that it's owned by Fire District 2 wholly. That's what we have in front of us right now so far, right? That's true?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, Rob, the last time or one of the last times we talked about maintenance on the hall, it was more than sticker shock. At some point, you just could decide that it's not worth a lot of money for a building that we hope to abandon or at least sell at some point. Didn't we talk about just doing some lipstick on the front, like kind of painting it and making it look a little nicer and then address the serious concerns? I know that the bathroom's always been on the list. And it looks like that if there's a leak, that needs to be addressed fairly quickly too, but weren't we kind of trying to sidestep the siding and
We did, and
full
then
paint?
Kevin Waters in a talking group that Leona and I are in, it come up on a side conversation, and Kevin said that he could get us a legislative appropriation to do pretty much whatever we need to do. So in talking with Leona, that's where I'm moving forward to try to get a quote on. I believe we talked about that in that must have been a month and a half ago when I called in and gave you an update and kind of asked you which direction we want to go in the department head meeting. You'd said, let's do the bathroom.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's more of a, do we just ignore that from our state rep, or? Yeah, I mean, it's sticker shock. Why are we putting that type of money into that building? Um, so.
Yeah.
I did float the idea to the volunteers to paint it and didn't get much a response. You know, just to paint the front, didn't get much of a response. So I'm sure it would be me and Tom down there painting if we painted.
Mostly Tom.
Probably Tom, yeah.
Yeah,
Tom also retired from us last night too. So
yes.
I have to bribe him with a little bit better items to get him to paint it, which I'm willing to do, Tom.
Thanks, Rob.
Mr. Next topic.
Go ahead.
So yeah, I'm getting a quote. It's the same quote Gordy's from the contractor Gordy's using for the roof, which brings up the roof of the lower shop, which brings up, you know, that's a whole nother layer of mud, I guess we could say, for lack of a better term, you know, because who owns that? Who owns the lower shop?
That's a good question. Do we know that? The comments I was wanting to make, Rob, when I heard you say that Kevin Waters said whatever we need to do, I'm curious, a couple of things that is what timeline, what's the legislative timeline that he may be able to help, whether it's a small amount or a big amount. And the reason I ask, and we probably don't know his timeline or what he was thinking, because when I hear somebody say whatever we need to do, and however he said it, well, then I want to know, well, what does that mean? Does that mean a new building? Does that mean, in other words, my point is, let's say that he has a longer legislative timeline for helping bring some money home to Skamania County. Is there a way we could work on these broader issues that might involve, well, what is the future going to be for the fire station? And can we work with Kevin Waters in the legislature, whether it's Fire District 2 or whatever? I mean, if we're going to go the direction of a new building, well, that piqued my interest when he says whatever we need to do. Well, how?
So it's definitely not a new building. I asked him that directly.
Okay, that clarifies that.
It would be the
Yeah.
same type of appropriation that the city's using for Cascade Avenue.
Okay.
So there's a form that you fill
Okay.
out in January. You
Okay.
toss your project out there, and then it gets graded or scored, however, and then Kevin decides to push it or not push it.
Yeah.
And then it goes through whatever their process is.
Yeah, any upgrades, or let's say whatever was spent on that money, whether it's the city or however that the last item on the agenda goes, theoretically, if we're doing stuff that would help the value of that building, even if it were sold, I mean, it might be that these might not be lost cost. If that building will have some value to somebody, if not to the fire station, so whatever,
Yeah, I mean,
it's probably just happy medium.
that's the
Well-
same point that I had, Pat, too. I mean, if we can get, we know we're not going to get money from the legislature to put a new building in, but if they're willing to do maintenance and we can dump the money in to do the repair, and we still know in our long-term plan we need a new building, that when we sell the building, we're going to recoup that cost, right? Because we've taken it from the point of it's falling down to, okay, somebody might buy it, right?
And then if it ends up being, and then I'll be quiet, if it ends up being that we're stuck with that building for somebody's fire hall for a long time, well, then at least we've started the process of rehabbing it some. But anyway, that's the end of my comments on that for now.
Could I ask how concrete were the terms of that discussion?
I mean, as concrete as a
Kevin Waters?
politician can make it.
Yeah. I mean, did we have?
You know, there's a process, and he said that he thought it would be a pretty good project to try to get funding for.
Right.
You guys I've seen Kevin get money for like Underwood Water last year. So it gets put in and it can get cut out the end, but you gotta be ready, you gotta have your bid or a cost ready, you gotta fill out your work. And then he calls and he'll let you know, cause, is the city with it, working with the lobbyists too? So CFM will let us know when they're writing all that up there and working with it. It'll get put in a bill, and then sometimes it survives. It's like Underwood got 1 million water last year, Mill Lake didn't get in their water district, so it kind of just deals with the politics in Olympia, but Kevin and Maria fight a good fight for us. We just gotta be ready for it if there's an opportunity.
All right, so it sounds like, move forward with an estimate with the hope that, Kevin can come through with us with some state money.
I did find the actual, deed from 1967, that actually says that the city and the fire district own it jointly.
Oh, really?
The other ones are from the 30s.
That's the time of construction,
67.
right in there, yeah.
Okay, well, there you go then.
Yeah.
They paid us a whole $10.
Well, you got
Maybe.
ripped off.
We'll see.
Is there
We'll give it back to you. You can take it all.
a concern? I have, that's the latest one found. Is there a way to definitively?
So this was a deed chain done by the title company,
Okay, so
So it should be
Theoretically.
registered. Yep,
and I can send it to everyone.
yep.
Regardless of the answer to that, is the city council in a position where they're gonna say, we're not gonna invest any money in that?
no, but that's, we need to know the answer, but it sounds like we have it.
So right now, the contract states, I mean, regardless of ownership, though, the contract states that we will still pay 70%
Right.
of the cost of things, and then the fire district will pay 30%. So until that contract is changed.
Yeah, so we probably need to change the contract.
Yeah, no, that's just a question you want to absolutely know, and if you're confident that that last document found is the absolute answer, at some point, that's a relevant thing we need to know. The legal ownership, it doesn't necessarily mean we're talking about it in the context,
Being the junior member on this council, what's the expectation for the lifespan of this building then?
So,
1988.
yeah, it's already done.
anyway.
The
I
biggest,
thought EMS should take out
biggest
another
issue,
wall.
Chuck, is non-reinforced cinder block. And so we can't do much with it except fix it up, but it's never gonna be the next phase for us, so we definitely need to move out of that thing.
So we need to move on to a new building.
Yeah, if you pull the engine out onto the apron to do maintenance or run the pump through its cycles, your back, when the door closes, because you don't want the exhaust going in, is at the door, and your pump is almost in the street, and you have to, it's front end pump, so you have to actually be halfway across the sidewalk just to do it. It's really not a safe situation. I've never seen anything like it anywhere. Anyway, New York City has more room in front of their engines than this place. It's not, it needs more than just whatever we can do to it, you know, lipstick on the pig thing. It really is not appropriate.
The bathroom is horrible. We need turnout storage. Yeah, there's lots of things that have been ignored over time, so it definitely needs money. So it's just how much and from where.
And I think it's really unfair to have the volunteer firefighters who we want to be volunteering, fighting our fires and responding to calls, be the ones to be also say, then would you please paint the building for us too? I think if we to do it right, we would have it professionally painted by a contractor at the best price we could get and not bug our volunteers for that kind of stuff. That's, I mean, but whatever. So what I'm unclear on is, are we spending money tonight, or are we just getting general consensus that, hey, we need to go this direction? I mean, are we making, I'm trying to figure out what kind of decision
I
we're
think it's
making
the
now.
latter.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, and I've approached painters and they won't bid on it because of the requirements to do prevailing wage and all the paperwork that goes on with that. I'm running into the same situation that the city staff is running into on small works roster stuff and getting concrete sidewalks poured and all of that. So it's a challenge. I've contacted 4 paint companies and I only got one to return. And when he found out that it was prevailing wage, he said he doesn't mess with that.
All right, so do we have direction then? Spend money once we figure out from where.
Money we can get.
Yeah.
I think we need to be, I don't know what plans are in place to build a new facility. I mean,
There is, that is a long sorted story.
okay,
There are partial plans.
okay,
No, it was originally going to be a co-op with other agencies, and those agencies have slowly peeled off. So we had some plans that were over planned, and now we have property, not the complete plan, or it needs to be scaled. Like, so, but the biggest thing is the money.
So do I hear the direction being that we're gonna just work diligently with Kevin Waters and see how much we can get and before any final decision is made? So it's not like we're spending, we can say, yeah, that's the direction versus we should go ahead and we'll spend this 100,000 ourselves if we need to. 2 different directions. Is all I'm trying to say.
I'm thinking any real dollars that need to come in either from the state or from our own coffers should be toward a new facility.
Well, and I think at the last meeting, it was talked about putting the fire hall on the back burner until the governance discussion was done.
Okay,
So there's, what do you want to do first?
The logic that you're suggesting, Chuck, is the logic that is controlled for probably 12 years now. Means 12 additional years of deferred maintenance has been happening down there. And that's starting to catch up and see it in the form of leaks from the roof and that bathroom situation that Scott described as horrible,
Yeah.
getting worse all the time, so.
well, I think we need to be
It is.
spending money on basic repairs to make sure the place doesn't fall down on anybody, but
While having $100,000 waived in front of us, I had the knee-jerk reaction to, we do need a new building, but without a real plan in place, it wouldn't go anywhere. It wouldn't move the needle. So if we have that opportunity, it's like a good time to.
And as I don't get fixated on this 100,000 from this quote, because if you're going to consider the cost of the bathroom upgrades or the whatever you want promise, it's not going to be 100,000. It's going to be something that's going to accomplish all of those, which we haven't explored that full cost on, but would be explored before there is that request to legislature for that funding.
Yeah, we'll know more once we get the quote back. But
Yeah, 'cause I don't see turnout storage on here either.
well, that's mobile. I'm gonna start buying that as soon as I get back in town.
Okay. All right, does that complete our fire hall maintenance discussion?
The consensus to move forward with some investments in this building.
All right. Best for last. Leon? You have a memo?
So the committee met, and looked at, regional fire authority, annexation, and, also possible changes to the contract. And I think the decision was based on, the longest term, 10 to 20 years out, the best decision was gonna be the annexation of the city into Fire District 2. And so the question here is that a direction that the governing bodies would like to research further, look into more? I think the Regional Fire Authority, part of the reason why that was just taken off the table was because we already act like a one fire district. We're not separated out. Like some other, we're not merging volunteers, not merging chiefs, we're not doing any of that. The department already acts as one, so.
Now, did you explore a larger regional fire?
We did not look at that, no, we just looked at Fire District 2 and the city. That was the scope of what they.
I'm missing the one piece that I'm missing would be, what is it about the mechanics of an annexation that would necessitate additional cost of?
When the city annexes into Fire District 2, then the Fire District 2 levy is applied to city residents,
Where it currently is none.
where it's currently not.
We're paying it through county taxes, right?
No. Your city taxes that you pay for right now, the 1.4 rate, pays for the fire department here.
Hmm.
Within your general fund. It's one of the departments that's covered in your general fund.
Okay.
And so when we're annexed by the district, their rate then applies to city residents.
So on your property taxes, right now you don't have a fire district or a fire jurisdictional line item.
Well, that would amount to quite a boon for the fire district. So what's that money gonna be used for?
So the discussion here is that something that you want to look at? And if so, then that discussion can take place as far as more fleshing out of what does that look like? What's the process you want to use for determining all of those things? What's the money gonna be used for? And a timeline and whether or not, it needs to be expedited. And then also, as Rob was talking about earlier, you know, does it want to happen before Fire District 2? Does a levy rate lift or after? Or does that happen after, you know, what's the timing of everything?
Yeah, we're very, very preliminary. Like it's like we're trying to say, throw it out to you. What do you guys think? You know, if we, from my standpoint, we would need to have a very rigorous plan in place at the fire district to let the taxpayers know what they're getting for voting in an annexation and a lid lift. You know, much like the hospital district does with their levies, they have a very transparent and robust plan of deliverables. The fire district would need to figure that out and present that as well. So that's where, you know, my comment was earlier that, you know, we're not necessarily going to be status quo. There definitely needs to be a plan presented about, you know, what the deliverables would be, you know, so that would take a lot of work. And that's something that the fire district needs to be ready and willing to do.
If we did as what Michael suggested in contract with the fire district for their services, obviously they're gonna want a contract from the city that's gonna necessitate our contribution. Where's that money? Where would that money come from?
The general fund.
General fund.
And do we have enough excess in the general fund to do that?
It would be whatever we're putting to the fire department right now, and that would go to the fire district.
Assuming that they wanted the contract for the same price.
Well,
Well, no, so right now,
two
it's
parties.
cost. It's, we split the cost of the department, so there's no fixed fee like we have with the sheriff's department. It's in essence a time and materials contract that we have that we share. And so what it would transition to would be just a flat fee for service, which is what we have with the sheriff's department, which is negotiated.
So I think the question is still good. Is the money that is being paid currently as part of the agreement going to be match up to a services contract? Is that going to be sufficient money?
The money for a services contract that we would allocate to that we're currently allocating to the department would be less than what they would receive if we were to annex. So right now, so if the city were to annex into Fire District 2, they would get $320,000 with this year's levy rates. If we go based off of historic costs, they get about, it depends on what expenses you want to throw in there. This includes some capital costs, but it'd be between $100,000 to $150,000.
And if they do a levy, a lid lift.
Yeah.
You're looking at about $535,000 that they would be bringing in per year. If they annexed.
Actually, I think I revised that the combined assessed valuation would be $320,000. So if the city's contribution to that would be about $220,000.
What do you have the combined valuation at?
So in the chart, I didn't separate out what was city and what was Fire District 2 for the other two levies, if we were to annex. I just have the city's rate, but using what the Fire District this year is expected to get $90,000.
Yeah, based off of $150,000.
Right, and so if the assessed valuation were combined, and so the assessed valuation of the Fire District is about 150 million. And then the city's 384.
Right.
So it's combined 585 or 535.
That 1.4, does all of that go to the fire, or is it a portion?
That 1.4 is our general fund. So
Okay.
it goes
So
for
what
everything.
portion of it is for the fire?
It's whatever the expenses are for the fire department.
70%.
No,
Total
no.
So that's a
I mean,
contract. Yeah,
I mean,
right. I
so
mean, that's what
it's-
we're doing.
Like in the last year, what's the?
I can't tell you that right off the top of my head.
Total was
I
about
don't have that
118.
Last year, we budgeted $272,000 for the fire department. But that had a $84,000 inflation in there for, I think we put some money in there for some repairs that we thought we were gonna have to do. So that's a little bit inflated.
Those are city dollars, right? I
That's
mean,
the
we're talking
city,
about
yeah.
from the city.
And
Okay, got it.
I think there's
So-
like I think there might be $20,000 to $40,000 that we budget to pay Fire District 2 invoices ahead of time, and then we back bill them. So we would take that out there to get the true budget numbers. And I didn't do that and I just know this because I just did my budget worksheet the other day. So but yeah, we have a pretty good set of data. We could figure out how much it would cost.
Sorry. So
But
you're saying-
that is a good thought process to think about, like Dave and Pat kind of wanted to get out of the fire business, so that could be like an interim step. A crawl step, like Howard said, crawl, stand, run, and fly. It might be a crawl step.
The contracting, right?
Yeah.
Talking about the contracting part, yeah.
The,
I did note that
the hesitation that I've had in the past is the fire district isn't set up administratively to support that yet. They would have to do some significant changes, which they would need to put some administrative services in place. Right now, we have Caitlin in Onders that do a bang up job at keeping us square fireside. So we would lose that. We would lose Ben and Leona's grant administration and grant writing knowledge and expertise. So there's some trade-offs, definitely. That's we've discussed the contracting before. That was my red flags. But that's not to say that the fire district shouldn't step up and put in those administrative services if they're doing a contract type deal.
And since nobody else is saying anything, either way, whether it's contracting or annexation route, we're done at some point in time. Those duties that you're talking about, Rob, I mean, that, those adjustments would need to be part of the planning and be made either way, whether you were gonna annex or contract with, then Fire District 2 is having to fly under its own wings. And so the thought that crosses my mind when Rob, that maybe, and even Rob talked about the timeline being aggressive for the annexation. It maybe just not either or, maybe we just say, hey, do it. If you just did contracting, fine, it can stay just contracting. Maybe that we would find that system worked forever, or maybe we wouldn't. But there's nothing to preclude us from doing annexation at some future time. So we could say, for those that think, I think we should have annexation, we could say, well, hey, we're not ready for annexation right this second. We got a lot on our plate. It's aggressive timeline. Let's just work on the contracting part. And because we can negotiate that figure, it gives us skin in the game, as people have said, but I think everyone wants wants a fire station to do well and survive and be able to function and provide us fire services. So it's not like the city is gonna try to get by for nothing. They're gonna try to, let's say we go the contracting route for now. We're still gonna try to be fair, right? As an entity, just as and tackle these tough problems and give the fire district. It just seems to me like this might be a good process. Do contracting, work on that, getting that baby done. And it doesn't preclude us from going on to annexation at some point, and if the taxpayers ever supported it. And it could be that, I mean, it's something that Fire District 2 is going to have to do anyway, is fly under its own wings with our help as we transition to that. Anyway, just some thoughts.
Go for it.
This is actually part of Michael Johnson's committee, right? Is there a reason why he's not here tonight?
Don't know.
He had a previous work commitment.
The second question I have is, if we went through with the annexation, is there, what legal obligation do we have to go to the full levy rates that are?
So it would be whatever Fire District 2 levy rates would be. So when you annex, you don't set the rate at annexation. The rate at annexation is whatever that district's rate is.
And that's added to the
And even though
city's
they're adding
current
an
rate.
additional body of revenue, you can't negotiate that at
Right,
all.
no.
Go for it.
Was it discussed, and I think if we're looking at this to do our due diligence, every aspect, every option needs to be put on the table and discussed. So you have doing nothing, you have the city, the fire district annexing the city, and the reverse of that, then of course would be the city annexing the fire district. You've already got the support, you've got the building. I think, we need to look at what would that look like to the taxpayers, because we don't have any of that. This would be a very hard time for the district to go into administering that, the department in that form.
So the annexation of this, if the city could not annex the entire fire district boundaries because it exceeds the city's urban growth boundaries. So that is not an option
Leona,
for the city to annex.
could the city take on the contract side of it?
But
So
I
City of
mean,
Stevenson would do fire
right now
service
what
for
you're
District
doing is
2.
the fire district 2 is contracting with the city, right?
I think he meant in reverse, but I don't want to put words in Rob's mouth.
So I think,
No, what
Tom,
did you
so
mean by that, I guess, is the question.
we discussed that last night, and Tom brought up last night that the one option could be that the city remains the primary fire service provider and then contracts with the fire district. So Fire District 2 contracts and has the city of Stevenson do the fire services. And
And
then,
that's what we have now. How,
except
how is,
for there's
what
not
would-
we would get the more money would go into the city. You know what I'm saying?
how would that look differently than what we have now?
I think he's referring to Fire District 2, perhaps not doing any administrative work.
We don't.
You would still have to have a governing body that meets regularly.
Yeah, it would be it would be much like Clark County Fire District 5 exists down in Vancouver, and Vancouver covers their fire needs, and their commissioners meet and pay the quarterly bill.
My suggestion is simply to look into it so that whatever we do, we've checked all the boxes.
But that was what the, was that what the committee was about?
Yeah, well,
That's what I thought.
bring up a point, no.
And that's what the committee did.
Okay, well, if this was looked at already, that's fine.
Yeah.
Just bringing it up because I did not hear that aspect of it.
What,
The city taking over the department.
Yeah. Usually it's, we want this, you guys give it to us, and here's the, no, you take it.
so
That's what happened in the last meeting.
So who was, I guess, the committee, well, can you remind me what the makeup of the committee,
It was Rob, Howard, Michael,
okay.
and myself.
And Howard. Who said Howard?
Yeah.
Here is a thought, and that was brought up by Mr. Perry here, but if, let's say we ever did the annexation route, we know that we would have to have the support of the public for that, because they're gonna be voting on it. Why not put some experts, like I heard Mr. Perry offer to be on a committee, we actually get some citizens that have fire experience, and we say, hey, take a look at this, because those are the same people we would have to sell on whatever I mean, especially on annexation where we need their vote. And they would, and we could instruct them, hey, over the next 3 months, and you pick people like Mr. Perry and people that are in the work in Fire District 2 now, and some of the volunteers, so all firefighters, some with vast budgeting experiences with $70 million budgets, and you'd say, okay, here, we're gonna give you this can of worms for a while, see what you can do with it and come up with some options for us. And I'm not putting down Rob and Howard and Michael's work or Liana's, because that I'm not. I'm just trying to say that we maybe, I mean, are we gonna lose anything if we followed up on Mr. Perry's suggestion that he would be part of a committee that would look into this more in depth? Maybe it would add to what Rob, Howard, Michael, and Leanna have already done. But it'd be some more sweat equity into this issue.
Now, the next question is, how many Michaels are there out there?
I'm
I-
curious, whether Michael had volunteered to sit on the committee to review the job description or to organize an annexation and governance overview.
Well, I have lots of time because I'm retired, which is a beautiful thing, by the way, well, I think, Tom, you retired from Havasu, so you know.
Right.
I know this, can I speak?
Yeah,
I know
go for it.
It's, yeah, I want to make sure
Well,
there's
'cause
proper.
Ann has some thoughts too, so.
Proper decorum. Without getting into the weeds too much, I really do see this, I think we're making this a little more difficult than it needs to be. The city pays X amount of dollars a year currently towards fire protection. They contract with Fire District 2. You have an elected board that deals strictly with fire. And that's their wheelhouse. That gives the future chief an opportunity for success, because he or she's not sitting there dealing with the city and this and that. That person is dealing with fire. The city contracts with Fire District 2. You come out with a 10-year average, and I know it fluctuates, but let's say 200,000 a year is the average that the city pays. So the city contracts with Fire District 2, writes them a check. Now, I understand, because I see it, Fire District 2. I don't even know if they exist. There's no web page. There's nothing showing their budget, meeting minutes, nothing. So that's telling me they don't have any infrastructure set up. So would they be successful in tomorrow running the fire district? No. However, Skamania EMS, from what I understand, with several other fire districts in this county, currently contract with them to provide their admin stuff as far as records, blah, blah, you know, that. So how I see it is the city contracts for X amount of dollars, let's say a 5-year contract, with Fire District 2. They write the check, that puts the city out of it, but they still have the skin in the game. On the admin side, because Skamania EMS is already doing it with many districts, you know, let's say EMS charges $50,000 a year to provide the admin services, then at that point, you've created a governance that is much more streamlined. The fire district board could work on the strategic plan. You know, maybe that will save dollars in the end, or you put money away for a future facility, because you know what, the firefighters, that place is an embarrassment. As a professional firefighter, that place is an embarrassment. It's a joke. It's not safe for the people, for the crews. And I think, I'm sorry, your name again?
Ray.
Ray made a great point. You know, you go out on a fire and they don't have a shower facility or anything. Well, the reality is with firefighter cancer, it doesn't matter if you're a career firefighter or volunteer, you don't need to bring that stuff home with you. I don't even know, how do you clean your turnouts? You don't?
No.
Okay, that's asinine. So what we
Okay.
need to think about.
Hold on.
Yeah,
But what we need to.
Yeah, I think
We send our turnouts in to get washed.
All right,
Okay.
we are
Okay.
meandering off the
Okay.
path
Okay,
here.
let me
Not
get
100% asinine, but
Contract the city, the Fire District 2. For whatever dollar amount that is. Sounds like that's gonna be pretty close to what the city
Okay.
currently pays out of the general fund. Then you're not increasing the taxes on the city residents. Then utilize Skamania EMS, who currently admins several of the fire districts to handle the day-to-day paperwork. And I think you're gonna have a much cleaner organization and then that's something that's expandable. And then, you know what, in essence, you have created a JPA of some sort between the city and the district. And that doesn't mean now in the future, you know, Bonneville says, hey, maybe we need to join. And Fire District 1 says, hey, maybe we can join. And that's how you start forming a county fire department over time. But I just.
So, heard, all right, very good. And you had some thoughts?
I have two clarifying questions, if I may. If the city is statutorily required to provide fire service under the current state of the union here, correct? The city has a statutory requirement to provide fire service.
Yep.
The second question is if Fire District 2 decides that they're going to put an annexation to the vote of the people, the city has no control over that. Their only option is to support it or not support it. Fire District 2 can put a ballot measure without the city's consensus?
No, the city has to initiate the annexation.
Okay, so that was my clarifying question. So unless the city initiates it, Fire District 2 is just gonna be Fire District 2 forever and ever in perpetuity.
Both, like the body being annexed has to approve it. Both agencies have to approve the process to move forward. And then and then the voters.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, since we've opened it up, did you have more thoughts? Or more want to chime in?
You know, other than I appreciate, Mr. Perry's kind words about the work that EMS has done, because we have worked very, very hard to, bring, people together, and it's been a difficult challenge, because I didn't have 5 years of experience when I started as the chief at Skamania EMS. And I took a lot of liberty in reaching out, particularly to Chief Ferris, who probably now will, tell anybody about my evil plan to take over the world.
Wait, we haven't discussed that. I want to hear that.
But he and I and many of the other fire chiefs have often talked about how important it is to work together and to avoid duplication of efforts, right? And we are doing that with the other fire districts that we're working with. It is a much different situation with the setup that Fire 2 and the city of Stevenson has, because your agreement is somewhat confusing on how things work. And the question is whether or not Chief Ferris has to follow city policy or district policy. Does it matter if, you know, so I think that things continue to improve. And sometime, you know, long after I retire, and certainly long after Rob retires and moves on to other things, it's going to be all together at some point, and maybe that'll just happen naturally.
All right, Ray, I wanted to give you a chance to chime in too.
Oh, so this is just, Mike has brought up, Mike, right, correct?
Yeah.
Has brought a lot of really good points. You know, it's frustrating just as, you know, volunteer to hear people talk about, I would challenge any of you to walk our building where you say, we can't give them another penny. That's all I would say.
Yeah, I don't know, and I don't know if anybody said
Yeah,
that.
but I mean, it seems like it's just a fight to get some
Yeah.
minimum investment down there.
Mhm.
Walk that building, please. You know,
Thanks. All right, so the ask was to get some kind of consensus on a direction. So it feels like, unless I'm missing something here, the wind is blowing towards contract. Am I hearing that right? With the possibility of standing up, bolstering District 2, then maybe moving into talks of annexation. Am I reading the room right?
I think so.
I don't know if I'm reading that room right, but
Well, what are you saying?
I was at that meeting. The annexation process isn't gonna happen like.
Not even by these time.
Yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Yeah, it's gonna take time, a lot of time. It's not like it's gonna be done in 2025 or something.
And it sounds like contract is a great way to get out of the fire business, but the ball rolling, I guess.
Yeah, I think, and I think there's yeah, I don't know what I think about annexation at this point, but the contracting, to me, it doesn't preclude going for annexation later if we can justify it. So I mean, I'm happy to say that what you said is accurate. I don't know if it means I'm in favor of annexation now. I don't know enough, but it wouldn't hurt. If that ends up being the most valid thing to do later, it's help put it in place.
Plus, it would go a long way to enhancing the infrastructure, and I'm saying that kindly.
Yeah.
Yes, Ben.
I've heard a city council discussion about a potential path forward on this and settling on, we're gonna contract with another agency. That agency happens to be here too. And it'd be nice to know whether your path forward is a non-starter from some of those fire commissioners.
Yeah, what's your thoughts?
My thought is, I love Ann. She did a great job for us at the pool. We were 5 people that came in and neither one, other than swimming, we had nothing in common. We didn't know each other, and she took us and guided us to the path of we're legal, what the requirements were for all these different things, which most people don't have any idea about. But it seems like we're switching instead of saying you're our administration, and I'm not seeing any benefit in that. Personally, and as of right now, that's just the initial thought to it. I love your little door in the front. We can come in and get a check signed. Andres is always smiling, so is Ann. I mean, I just don't, what's the real difference? We should pay you for that service, thank you,
So, I mean, I guess from my standpoint, this conversation of changing the governance structure was brought up by the city council. So that would be a question for them.
How I would answer that is when I first heard about the annexation, in fact, that's what the committee was, the route they were going. I thought, well, boy, that's fire. We had the meeting last time, right? Fire District 2 and the joint with the city council. And I thought, well, something's changed because it seems like there's an entity here they're willing to take this on. That's a big step because you're having to make that leap, that jump. And so I thought that's different what I remember hearing. So what I see it is it's a tall order to go with annexation. So can we do a baby step and figure out the same confidence that led that committee to actually recommend kind of annexation? Say, let's discuss it. I just thought there had been some discussion there on how that would happen, on how how Fire District 2 would have the confidence and infrastructure to be able to do that. So maybe that's why I thought, well, that same infrastructure, that same level of confidence would be needed for contracting. So and maybe that's what it needs to look at. Maybe it could be a tiered approach, or it could be, hey, if this is the route we're going to go, we're not saying, okay, we're going to do that, but what would have to be in place for that to happen? It's the same things that would have to be in place if we went for annexation. So maybe, I don't think anybody wants to kick the fire. In other words, can those assurances that you talk about be put in place to where those procedural things are all in order, and here's how we're going to do it, A, B, C, and D. And everybody says, yeah, that'll work. So I don't know. I didn't mean to get long-winded.
What about the status quo doesn't work for the city? I guess. So there's a discussion about changing what the status quo is. I've heard some of you in the past say get the city out of the fire business. And so that's annexation leads to that, this contracting with the districts and incubating them or fostering their improvement leads to that. And so having those discussions might help Tom and the fire district commissioners.
Well, can the city contract, just throwing it out there, can the contract with fire districts too, but also provide the admin structure? Is that different than what's going on now? Because now it's just, here's your money. You do the budget, and then the checks come out of here. Is that different?
Should. Yes.
I don't want to speak for Ben and Liana, but that would be something that you would have to write up some type of contract for. It would be written in the contract, right? I don't know. It just seems like we either, we could go to hire a private person. We could contract with the city to do that. We could contract with the hospital district. We could contract with, an accounting firm or whatever. Ben, you asked what's wrong with status quo. In my opinion, there's nothing wrong with status quo. The city council wanted to get out with the comment was we want to get out of the fire business. So that's where we're at. We presented, at least 2, maybe 3 options. So.
All right, so we heard from Tom. Howard, thoughts?
Yeah, I think after our discussions in the committee, I think that we have whatever we do is going to have some short-term things that we have to solve while we talk about the long-term plan. And I think my opinion is annexation is the way to go at some point. I like the idea of contracting to get us there. I think to Mike's point, Perry's point that, and to Rob, we don't have the infrastructure to do that yet, whether we contract that out or we do that. But if we do what we're doing today, we'll be talking about this for the next 20 years. So we need to make a decision, move forward, have a plan and execute it. And during that execution, we will iterate, we'll correct, and we'll measure it, and we'll do it again, and we'll keep doing it. And we will get, I'm hoping in 10 years, we all look back and go, Stevenson has a great fire department, right? That's where we want to be. And I think that, what we're currently doing is pretty unique. It's a cluster, right? And we need to fix it.
Okay.
And we haven't fixed it in, since 67. So let's do something.
So my initial summation still stands.
Yes.
I think so. I think so. Dave? I'm serious.
I am not in favor of raising taxes.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting here looking at the figures and, Fire District 2 currently brings in $90,000. On top of that, they bring in whatever additional monies that the city currently pays, that additional 70%. Correct me if I'm wrong, Leona, as I go along here. What that is, whether it's 100,000, whether it's 200,000, that's up for debate. If the fire district were to annex and do a levy lift, they would be bringing in $535,000 a year. That would raise a $30,000 piece of property in the city of Stevenson, an additional $300 a year to do that. And I am not convinced those deliverables will be. I don't know if I've seen a budget breakdown of expenditures. Anyway, to my satisfaction, as to what how Fire District 2 and Stevenson Fire, how those expenditures break out. And I believe that the contract, it should be contracted out to Fire District 2, and Fire District 2 determine how they are going to do the management of that contract and fire services. And Stevenson needs, other than the contract, we're out of the picture. That's my thoughts.
That's pretty much where we've been going, I think.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Yeah, and I, for one, agree with that because there's one thing we have in mind, even though people said, well, it could lead to annexation later, that has to, we as a city council would have to approve that, right? If we contract. So taking this first step, some people may want it to lead to annexation, and that's fine. But that doesn't mean it does. We're just saying this is a step along the way, and if, fine, if it does, it does, but it doesn't mean it does. But it gets to that objective of contracting with them, just like we do the sheriff's office right now.
Even if we have to in the short term, handle or facilitate the administrative piece of it.
Yeah.
Kind of leading them toward their ability to develop their own.
If we're going to do that, we need to have a timeline for when that's gonna stop. Otherwise, it'll
Yeah.
just keep getting pushed out, and I'm not in favor of that.
Okay.
We need to make a decision on,
How long we're
by
going to
how
continue
long
to
we're
do it.
gonna do that, and by this date, because our staff has got a lot of other things that they need to be taken care of.
What about that? And then I promise I'll be quiet, because I know you're wanting to wrap this meeting up. What about having that committee that we came up the committee idea that I mentioned before that they pursue, well, how would this work? Where they iron out a lot of this stuff, like the timelines. We find out if it's even gonna be workable, but they get down to that kind of stuff with somebody like Mr. I mean, we just,
I think that was the ask in the
Yeah.
first place
Yeah.
was, this is the thought. Pursue, yes, no, so kind of, but looking for some direction so that more work can be done.
so the
I,
more
I
work.
think the elected officials of Fire District 2 would need to determine whether or not they can do that. I don't think they need a subcommittee to do that. I think they can
Okay,
answer.
and that's fine. Yeah, because I don't care how, none of us really, I mean, we just want to see progress and good things for the fire district. So I'm not wedded to that idea. I'm just trying to help us move ahead.
I think that's all of it.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
So is the committee gonna then meet back together to talk about the contract? Is it just gonna be a council committee that then works together to iron out what that could possibly look at to then propose to Fire District 2? How,
Fire district,
what's the next
if they were
step?
involved with it, then we wouldn't get into, my preference would be they'd be involved in the committee so that we're moving together as two entities and solving each other's fears or working together.
What do you think about the idea of the fire district board figuring out what they can do and then working with the city administrator and then determining if there needs to be more people brought in to present to the city council?
There probably needs to be some discussion if Fire District 2 decides that they want to go outside and to do their administration. Maybe they can have a discussion with EMS or somebody else to find out what those kind of costs are gonna be. And those costs could be addressed within the contract.
They'll need to justify
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
That's what I'm thinking is we need to do a little bit of research to see what standing up some administrative services would look like. I think that's on the fire district's shoulders, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because it needs to happen. We all know it does. And we've discussed it as a fire district, so.
The other thing I think we probably need to weed out too is do a title search if there has not been an official title search done on the property.
That's what that was.
Pardon?
That's what that document came from.
Recorded document.
Okay, so.
Is that the
now-
final?
It's in your email.
Is that the final? Is there any way to find out if that's the final legit document or is
Yeah,
looked
that's
at?
straight from the title company.
Okay.
That's 50/50.
50/50.
Yeah.
We'll give you a little more if you want.
We'll give you
The bathroom. We could get us a
Certainly the
bathroom.
bathroom.
We
Yeah, the
needed
city
something
can have the
downtown.
walls. We'll take the
Yeah.
roof.
All right, I'm getting ready to gavel us out of here. Does
Okay.
anybody have any other thoughts
Let me
before I?
summarize for
But when's the next meeting?
Okay, we're gonna talk about
December
that.
10th is the next meeting.
Okay.
Ben?
All right, so next steps, city council, you're expecting a modification to the personnel policy on the agenda next meeting to include the job description with modifications or acronyms as discussed tonight, right? For the fire hall maintenance, no specific expectation or deliverable coming out of that discussion, but authority for Rob to flesh out his maintenance improvement estimates and with the intent to request direct legislative funding for that. If there is information by the December 10th meeting, that can be provided. If there's not information, it will be provided probably as an update of what that legislative request ended up. Does that sound right? Okay, and then the discussion of the governance will be to start drafting a contract, work with the fire board on something that is acceptable to them as a skeleton. Bring that to the December 10th meeting for them to present that more to the city council and discuss that. Does that sound right? Does that sound like a plan?
That sounds great.
Tom's not nodding his head. Tom's just sit there.
I think the timeline may be scary.
Sometimes when you get something, it's more than what you thought, you know. Whatever, I'll work it out.
Final thoughts? 7:40 meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks, Rob.